what is innovation? My favorite definition of innovation is a better future delivered. And for me, that's exactly what sustainability is about. So these two things absolutely go hand in hand. What I also think sustainability, innovation is about is part of a greater process. Curiosity, creativity, innovation, transformation. And believe me, I think in this room and all the speakers we've heard on stage are all very curious, creative minds that are constantly innovating to hopefully produce some transformative work. And that's what I'd like to think, sustainability is, because we have to make a step change. If we can actually make any kind of change in this world, it has to be quick, it's got to be urgent, it's got to be scaled, it's got to be radical in the right kind of way, it's got to be collaborative. And so that's where I hope we will head with this topic. So, thank you very much, I appreciate that. No, so that was just simply because I don't think sustainability is siloed, it's a separate topic. I don't like speaking at sustainability summits because it means that it's a separate thing. It's got to be embedded in lots of other stuff, and it's great that it is represented in different ways here. So I'm delighted to hear that. Okay, I think we're almost ready to go. Let me just kind of glance over. Our speakers are ready. Our AV team is ready. Dom is ready. Give him a thumbs up. Thank you. Excellent. Right. Let's get back to the topic of AI. Look, we know this is a crucial one. We know it is. It's affecting our lives right now, even more so in the future. You just sense it's the tip of the iceberg here. Just take the laws of the game. Here in the UK, in the Premier League, we're going to get semi-automated offside technology next season. So we're already automatizing what's going to happen with offsides to try and make it clearer. Things like automation, machine learning, that is essentially, other words that are around the kind of word cloud of AI. But could there be all other parts of the football product and ecosystem that are affected? Broadcast, media, content. And in fact, so many ways that AI could affect what's going on next that it is so multifaceted, the whole product, the whole industry behind it. Fan engagement, key focus, of course. We've heard the word personalization a lot today with La Liga, with the Tottenham Hotspur app. Content creation, delivering targeted content, even journalism, and certainly the on-air product. How can AI influence that? How can a rights holder maximize that opportunity? But here's a little thing, and I should say this. Is it all necessarily positive? Do we just bound into the world of AI, just, skipping along and dancing? Are there any drawbacks? Do we need to hold anything back from the influence of AI? And if so, what and why? Or could it just be the best thing to happen to the beautiful game? Its biggest discovery, its biggest opportunity. Okay, so much for my preamble. Time for our esteemed quartet, plus our moderator as well, to step on stage to take on this critical conversation. Okay, guys, we're about to bring you on. Please welcome to the stage, there we go, got your attention, Lewis Wiltshire, SVP and Managing Director of Digital at IMG, Peter Hutton, who is advisory at Greenfly, Lucas Bugter, Director of Operations at 433, and Dennis Galejski, who is Head of Product Management, Audiovisual Rights and Media Product at DFL, Deutsche Fußball Liga. Welcome on stage, guys. Peter, long time.
Good to see you, man.
Lovely to see you. WFS Beatles, we remember it. Yeah. Hey, how you doing, Lewis? Great to see you. Hey, guys.
Great to see you.
Listen,
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. No worries. Any time, Zubair. I appreciate this. Zubair, who is partner and global vice president, culture at Meltwater. Listen, I love working with you guys. I've been on stage with you before. It's been a little while, Peter and Lewis particularly. But look, what can AI unlock? Let's say this is a weighty topic. You've got time on stage. Make the most of it. Really looking forward to this one. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, David. So we have put together what I would say, in my opinion, the Avengers of AI, right? So let's really unpack their superpowers here. I think a great way to think about AI is we've talked a lot about automation. We've talked a lot about sentiment analysis. This panel's job is really to help you understand, based on their specific roles, how AI can be implemented currently and hopefully in the future as well. So, Peter, maybe we'll turn to you. What's your thoughts around AI in general? How are you working with AI right now, both good or bad?
I think it's transformative, and the fact that it's being adopted so quickly around the world is remarkable. I think you look at the speed at which you can get content out, the personalization of that content, the ability to tell better stories because you can tag content and move it out faster is huge, and that opens up so many different areas. It's a fascinating discussion.
Yeah. So taking that question, applying it to you as well, Lewis, in a minute, can you tell us how you are interacting with AI?
Well, I think when we talk about AI, the first thing we have to acknowledge is that it's an incredibly broad term. And when we think about the way that it impacts the football industry and the way that the football industry interacts with fans, arguably it's been doing that for 20 or 25 years. Social media algorithms are AI, right? But I think it's generally understood in a room like this that when we talk about AI, we're probably talking about the events that Peter just described of the last 18 months or 2 years. We're talking about ChatGPT, OpenAI, Sora, and everything that's happened in that sort of most recent 2-year spell. And I think to Peter's point, it's revolutionary. I always think about the internet in 3 eras: the Web 1 era, sort of one-to-many broadcasting, the Web 2 era, social media and everything that happened there, and then the Web 3 era, or the third era of the internet, because Web 3 has become a little bit of a stigmatized term, but the third era of the internet, which will absolutely include AI and all of the revolutions that are about to follow.
Yeah, so before I go into Lucas and Dennis, coming back to you, Peter, revolutionary, that's quite a big phrase, right? From your vantage point, what does revolutionary look like in terms of AI and its application?
Well, I think it allows you to tell different types of stories, you know, and if you take the principles of tagging and the principles of trying to make content more personal, it allows you to do, for example, things that put a fan at the center of the story. You know, the idea that something we've been trialing at Greenfly, where you upload a selfie, so you give permission for people to recognize your face, and then suddenly the highlights of the game becomes the highlights of you at the game. I think that in itself allows you to just completely democratize what you're doing and doing things that are far more emotionally powerful for a fan. You know, if you look at what you get sent by friends at games, it's not a picture of a distant player, it's a picture of them center stage and the ground behind them, like a romantic painting where you've got an individual against this huge background, and it allows you to tell a story through that lens. You know, so you could, for example, imagine a world where a fan can buy along with their ticket a digital representation of the game, which is them watching the game, highlights of the game with them cut into it. You know, and I think that allows you a different type of storytelling, which is really powerful and emotional.
Yeah, and I think that is a really good answer to a question that's been asked on many occasions is, where is the emotive moment of sport going with AI? Where is that ticket stub to say you were there at the Fury-Usyk fight, for example, a week ago? And I think that's a really good example of that. Lewis, just to ask you that question, from your vantage point, taking some of the elements that Peter's talked about, how are football clubs approaching the concept of AI in terms of application, right, and strategic thinking?
But one of the things that we talk about at IMG is cut, create, cultivate. So we had a digital trends report, it comes out every year. The one that came out at the end of 23, looking ahead to 24, predicted an era of cut, create, cultivate with AI, i.e. it can absolutely cut inefficiencies and workflow. I think we've all seen that already. In a way, sort of AI is the new intern. Like it can do a lot of that work for you. Create, you know, Peter's touched on generative AI. It's going to be able to create a huge amount of an amazing array of new content formats. And then cultivate, there's absolutely a way that it can help sports organisations, football rights holders to cultivate fan groups, communities. So I think it's fair to say that in the football industry, there's definitely a little bit of wait and see. I think that's fair to say. As much as we're all very sort of hyping AI and I've used words like revolutionary, I think it's also fair to say that there's a little bit of a sense of, it's really interesting, we've all played with it in the office, but what does it really mean? Like, how is it helping me sell tickets right now? How is it helping me sell merch? It absolutely will. We all know that it will. But I think right now, there's still a little bit of wait and see.
Yeah. So you've talked about create and cultivate. Lucas, perhaps 43 is the biggest example of that. I think 2 billion impressions per month. Give us your insight in terms of AI.
Yeah, I totally agree with Lewis was saying before. So AI is already there for many years, right? So social media platforms are actually using their AI algorithms to make it personal, more personalized in your feed. And we actually knew exactly how to adapt to these algorithms to serve the content in the best way possible for a platform like Instagram, for example. But nowadays, the last year, 2 years, it actually helps us the other way around as well to create even more personalized content by our designers, by the help of AI. And we launched our new app where we can actually create our own AI algorithm. So people will see that a fan that is in love with Dortmund will see at first everything around Dortmund, and he can predict the game of Dortmund, and when the game is over, he will immediately get a personalized journey of the game. And I love what is happening at the moment in that term of content creation. Yeah.
Great example there of hyper-personalization, right? Really curating and serving content based on the end user. Dennis, let's bring you in, obviously working with the leagues. What's your perspective on AI? You sit on a reservoir of data. It's your job ultimately to translate that from lens to lens.
Yeah, let me start by saying, and I like the potential is out there and a lot of opportunities, but for us, from a general point of view, we are aiming that AI should support tasks that are done in the same quality or even higher quality than our teams can currently do them, but way faster, so that we can allocate the talent of our team to other tasks. But I also do believe that with every technology, and also including AI, you need to use them in a very responsible and controlled manner. So we have a responsible for our fans. We stand as Bundesliga for authentic experience. So, and this will also be the core. So the original will stay the core, but at the same time, we need to be curious what is out there. And also I do believe in the future we need to rely on external partners, external know-how, because also from the, and you mentioned the lens-to-lens strategy, AI, the development goes on that fast that we really need to rely also on external know-how, fresh ideas to be part of that experience or the development.
Yeah, well, you mentioned two aspects, like curiosity and fresh ideas. So how does that work for a league such as yours? Give us an insight.
Yeah, so for us, my department is actually the best, so we implemented an innovation team, a dedicated innovation team, and innovation is not something, from my perspective, that is only done by one team. It's like a multifunctional, cross-functional task, but at least you need to streamline it. You need to have an innovation radar, be out there, be curious, have the partners that also come with fresh ideas and also see the development. And as I said, also being on the same, I wouldn't say wait and see, but at least we need to be aware of what we are doing, and also with AI, we will at least make, or we will show when we use AI.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I saw the Bundesliga do, which I loved, was using Greenfly, where they would tag players that came from a different country and then give pictures immediately back to the broadcasters from that country. So I think the example I saw was Denmark, where you would tag the Danish players, give immediate material back to the Danish broadcaster, who could use that on their social media or in their studio shows to have a Danish-themed show around the Bundesliga. And I love the speed that was able to work at.
And that's actually the perfect example, like being able with AI in the future to really, even more than we do now, localize content. And I'm also for us, the DFL, we're in that stage where we're not, or we don't need to put more quantity on it. We need to scale quality. Exactly like you're saying, add some extra flavor, like being able to have a faster turnaround to provide our media partners with the content they're looking for, and eventually the fans as well.
Yeah. And when I was a broadcaster, that was exactly the problem you'd have, right? And you get a world feed of a game, but it meant so little to your audience. And this is a way of suddenly creating value around the world feed that just wasn't there before.
Yeah. And when we talk about the global game now and creating value, and maybe this is a question for everyone here, how can we convert the global audience into commercial opportunities? Because now we have the opportunity to truly segment, right, based on different markets, age groups, user profiles, etc. I'll throw it out there, Peter, maybe we start with you first and work our way around.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, that we've just been talking in the Saudi League this week, and Lewis was there with us, about how do you segment audiences and how do you create feeds that are relevant to those audiences. So again, the opportunity to tag, to quickly turn around, to target people with different types of content is something that allows you to then build a commercial story as well. For me, I love the way that going back to my sort of deep and distant past, I used to have the worst job in television, where I was making a highlight show on golf, but the IMG sales guys had sold 30 seconds of Rolex exposure and 40 seconds of this sponsor exposure, and you'd have to scroll back and forward on tapes find shots with Rolex in the background and stick it into the show. Whereas now, you know, you can certainly tag it for your commercial partners and give them immediate value and immediate feedback as to how the broadcast has worked for them. So again, you're opening up commercial opportunities too.
That's a great example.
I think that one of the challenges that, that the football or the sports industry more widely will have is that none of us know yet exactly what we mean by when we say AI. So like we can talk, and I can talk all day about OpenAI and what they're building with ChatGPT and Sora. It's amazing. We can talk about Google, and we can talk about what AWS are doing and what Meta are going to do. And it's incredible. But we don't really know yet. Are these products? Are these apps? Is this hardware? Is it software? We're already seeing it's both hardware and software. We don't know yet. I think the challenge for the football industry, sports more widely, is there's been 20 years where really every big new tech innovation was a new social media platform, right? Like, so if you go back, there was Facebook, there was Twitter, there was YouTube, there was Instagram, there was Snapchat, there was TikTok. And the football industry's response to all of those was, every time a new thing came along, we need to be on this platform. But there is no, with AI, there is no on this platform, because we don't even know what we mean yet by the platform. There is no platform yet. We're still figuring that out. So I think they're tools. I think we've already discussed that it will revolutionize the way that we make content, the way that we reach fans, as Peter was just saying, the way that we personalize content that gets delivered to fans and the way it gets delivered. For me, the most exciting, also the most daunting, but really the most exciting thing about all of this is, for the first time in a long time, we kind of don't know where this is going yet. Exactly. We don't know we don't even really have a definition of what we're talking about.
Yeah. And so to your point, Lucas, where is 433 going with a lot of this innovation? And you were a social media company, right, that was born in this industry. So.
Yeah, so we started as this social media company, and we're now the biggest social platform in the world. And we're now leaning more and more to our own app. It's in a better version, but we are at this moment creating our own AI models. And for example, one of those is also creating an AI quiz builder where you can play unlimited amounts of quizzes from your own team or your favorite play or whatever you want for yourself. And those models, that is actually brand new for us, because that we weren't able to serve our fan on social media with these types of features. So that's really interesting. That's on a feature level, and aside from that, we see that the content creation we did, it's so much more easy in many ways. So for example, we on our channels, we created a lot of end results of games. And then we published this, but before we could publish it, someone had to do some graphic design for that. And nowadays we have an automation that actually brings the data in from our partner, creates the graphic by itself and publish it immediately, which is unbelievable because it spares so many time. Yeah, and the same is how we create ideation. So also when we are creating concepts for new opportunities, new partners, sometimes we actually say, hey, we think the storyline should look like this, and we make use of AI to actually create an ideation, and yeah, that actually helps us so much by in all the departments, all the levels of content creation. Yeah, that's unlimited.
Yeah. Well, speaking of content creation, I guess broadcast was the earliest version of that, the influence of its time, if you like. Dennis, you know, you're known for being innovative in that field. Any examples you can give us of broadcast that's freely integrating AI right now?
Yeah, sure. Before that, I would like to touch on what Peter was just saying about targeting different target groups. And that's the good thing about AI, because it's not either or anymore, especially in the world feed, because now we can do both. And for us as a league, I know Gen Z is important, but also we have a mega trend of silver society. So, and those are the ones usually with a little bit more or deeper pockets than the younger generation. So as a league, we have like a wide target group, and now with different content, different platforms, also with different world feeds, we can just target it to different audiences. And now, coming back to your question, yeah, and whether automated highlight clips have been around for a while. We started doing that, obviously, in cooperation with WC. We, 2.5 years ago, started automated production of Bundesliga 2. So graphics triggered by stats, ultimately added in the cloud, distributed to our media partners, which quadrupled our bookings from media partners. We invented the interactive feed, so the world's first personalized viewing experience aimed at the mobile generation. And just recently we launched the Bundesliga in-match analysis. And yeah, I brought a quick video, so happy, before I just explain it, please roll the video.
Bundesliga in-match analysis. Statistics and analysis are playing an ever more influential role in modern football and broadcast coverage of matches. In cooperation with AWS and VizRT, the Bundesliga now supplies its media partners with automated graphical analysis, virtually in real time. In addition to the existing Bundesliga match packs, this further enriches media products such as the tactical feed or selected live matches. What's more, the automated and graphically enhanced clips are directly provided to Bundesliga global rights holders for use on their various platforms. The next evolutionary step in database storytelling.
Database storytelling, right? I mean, I think that's a great way to summarize it. So maybe you can help us unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was meaning when I said, like, we want to scale quality. It's not about the solely automated highlight anymore. It's connecting a lot of things. The stats, which trigger then the graphics and the augmented elements, and a very swift turnaround, so that immediately eases the life of a producer or somebody producing content for localized, and obviously going further that road, scaling that too. And when I further localize it, then it can be done by the Danish player for the American player, and just provide it, and provides really value for our media partners.
Well, speaking of media partners, did you have anything there?
I was going to say, I mean, what I also like in Germany is what's happening at like the 3rd to 7th tier with Sport Total, where they have like an automated camera, which is 3 cameras in a box. And that allows you that same thing for much the lower level of football as well. And they're used for youth football. And again, it's a way of deepening your understanding of what's going on and helping people to care more about it, as well as improving player performance through AI analysis of what they've done. So it's opening up all sorts of things, even below the top tier. You can see the change beginning to happen.
Yeah, so Lewis, from a broadcast perspective, just bringing your lens, given the multitude of companies that you work with and clubs as well, are we at risk? Is there too much data being pushed? Is there too much analysis? Is there such a thing? Or are we right now at that stage where we're trying to find out what is the right mix and packaging?
I think that the key thing is the platform it's visible on, right? Because if you look at linear TV, there's clearly a limit to what data analysis they can do. And clearly it's massively improved what they do, but you're still receiving what the director wants you to receive. If you look at the experiences that are available in VR and MR now, you know, one of the great things about those 2 platforms is you've got unlimited real estate around you. So therefore you can have much more optionality of the graphics and the story that you want to dive into. And it might not be completely match related. It might be a chat room. It might be betting odds. It might be other stats that you're interested in, other scores. But you go into those spaces to watch your game, and all of a sudden you've got all these different options open to you, which genuinely makes use of what AI can tell you. You know, at the moment, you still need an interface to say, okay, what is important enough to make the broadcast feed? But as you get into 2nd and 3rd screens, and then into a world where it's all one giant screen, then you've got many more options coming to you.
So almost like a dashboard, if you like, right?
Yeah.
Of
Exactly.
data.
And you know, then you can dive in and be obsessional in the way that you do on your 2nd and 3rd screen, but potentially you can do this while still watching the game on the same interface.
Yeah. Your thoughts on this topic, Lewis?
Yeah, look, I think building on what Peter said, I think if you go back to I mean, we're still in the broadcast era, obviously, but if you go back to when we just had broadcast, you know, some broadcasters experimented with letting fans almost decide which camera view they watched of a game. And I think there's a general view in the industry that for a lot of fans, it was a novelty at first, but then they quite quickly realised that actually there's a reason why people are broadcast directors and they've spent 30 or 40 years learning to do that. It's because actually there's an art to it, and I'd rather watch what that person wants me to watch. Building on what Peter said, I think and the original question about could there be too much data, I think we failed if people feel like they're being overwhelmed by data, there's sort of data fatigue. I think the point is we need to walk that balance between letting people, to Peter's point, replicate their experiences from mixed reality in a football environment where they can create their own broadcast experience. That's absolutely possible. It's possible now, it's imminently very possible to create an environment where, rather than the clip we just saw, actually I want Harry Kane to win the Champions League, not just the I was going to say not just the Bundesliga. We didn't get there. But as a Spurs fan, I might want Harry to win the Bundesliga, and I could actually then use AI to create my own version of history and that's very it's not very easy to do, but it's very possible to do now, and certainly will be very soon. But if we're just throwing that stuff at fans, then that we failed as whatever you call us, media executives. We failed in that pursuit.
But as Lucas talked before, we're in this period where we can throw out experiments and look now at the data and see what is actually being useful or not. And the player cam is a perfect example of somewhere where we looked at the data, it doesn't actually add very much, right? Yeah. It's a handy tool for replays, but not for the live coverage. And one of the things that I saw that I really liked, for example, was a simple one where Sky, in their VR world, just put one wide shot of the ground as an option along with that main coverage, which meant that when you look down, you could see all 22 players, and you still had all the positives of the great match direction as well. So again, if you take the principle that we're going to do these different trials, we'll test and learn, we'll see what genuinely has pickup, and then allow a range of options on the menu that lets the fan make a choice, then clearly we're going in the right sort of space.
I'm just wondering, because I totally agree with you that we had many tests with the fan choosing the camera angles, and that didn't work, but it was maybe too intense because you had to be constantly active by yourself, while in the future AI understands what you want to see, so they will create your own version of it. That will maybe replace the director in the future, right?
The brain implants?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or by giving your feedback somehow with your second screen, and the broadcaster will understand that, okay, that means this person wants to have a different story during the game.
I mean, that was my earlier point, right? That for all the hype of the last 2 years, we've had AI for a long time. We've had machine learning about people's habits. This is going to massively accelerate that, like nothing we've ever seen. But it's not. I think we have to be careful that it's not stop-start. The era that we've had for the last 20 years of social media, there will be some new challenges. You touched on the putting more into your app before, and I think going back to owned and operated will be a trend that we see, not least because there's going to be a conversation over the next couple of years about the extent referral traffic and the extent to which, if I'm using traditional Google search less, but ChatGPT or Google's equivalent more, to what extent are my questions going to be who's going to win the Champions League final tomorrow? That question might be answered within a ChatGPT environment rather than linking through to 433 for an in-depth article about the same thing. So I think there'll be a return there. But yeah.
I mean, for me, it's the tagging that is the key moment, and because I think if you can tag content properly, you can then organize it properly, you can distribute it properly. And that ability now to tag players, to tag sponsors, to tag moments, just allows you to tell so many stories faster. And that's been the big acceleration, in that Lewis is right that we don't know where this is going to go to, but this is clearly like a seismic step to say we're going to look at everything that's on that screen, tag it, name it, organize it better, and then open up opportunities.
Yeah, that's actually, with that and combining what you just said, that's the beauty. If you have the options and you can just turn them on or off with the fingertip. So we don't know whether somebody, it's maybe for nerds or for others, for the lean back experience, for the forward-thinking experience. It's what we try to do with the interactive feed. So you can touch on every graphic and get deeper into it, but if you don't want to, you don't need to. So that will be interesting. Also, like you said, like what is out there, exploring, trying, but ideally, if it's in one product, give opportunities, have different layers maybe of a world feed, whereas an editor, I can choose, okay, I like the clean feed, or I like it more stats driven. So it's all about opportunities, and for us as a league then, make them scalable. Because if it's very cost intensive, we know, then it's hard to justify if it's then only an option and not used by many.
That scalability part is, when I talk about cut, create, cultivate, the cuts part is important because we have to reduce workflow to make this scalable for media teams. One important point that rarely gets discussed in these forums, and if anyone is here from a media team at a football club or a league, they would absolutely say this, is that they don't get any more staff when this stuff rolls around, right? So over the years, they've had more and more owned and operated website, app, then every kind of social media platform that we've seen over the last 15 or so years gets added on. Platforms like TikTok, which is a relatively heavy lift creatively. It's not just writing a tweet. Like that stuff gets more and more. Now AI, and you just know that there's people out there saying, great, how many more people am I going to get to do this? And the answer is not many. So that's where AI has to reduce workflow as well, and it can, and it definitely will.
But I think to try and make the argument for the media guys at the clubs, what it also is doing is it's opening up sponsor inventory, you know, and every chief revenue officer is saying, how do I find more inventory? How do I find different, more relevant things to sell? And you look at deals like the NFL's deal for pitch-side handheld content with Verizon, which for Verizon is a great way of telling the story about 5G. Or you look at UEFA's work, again, through Greenfly with Coke, where Coke are creating a sort of fan feed of handheld content that is far more emotional. You're also opening up sponsor revenues. And then if you can genuinely make that connection between invest in AI, you're going to create more inventory, then hopefully the hard-pressed social media teams at the clubs suddenly get something of more strength. And it's fascinating to see someone like Jerry Newman at PSG is now Chief Digital Officer, so he's in that C-suite, reporting straight up to the owners, because they've understood that digital underpins everything, whether it be marketing or revenue or just traditional social storytelling. And that sort of change within the clubs is fascinating.
I mean, I love the C-suite nod there. We'll come back to that in a second, but just bouncing that over to you, Lucas, how are you seeing that shift in transition from partners that you work with, how they would like to collaborate with clubs? What sort of data is of interest to them?
If we're already seeing like many questions about this,
yes.
So we're working constantly with clubs and leagues as our partners, and they, to be fairly honest, we don't talk a lot about AI, but in terms of reducing the workflow, that makes it more easy for us to serve them in an even better and faster way. Aside from that, well, with a partner as the Bundesliga, obviously we want to give them the creative solutions to make to actually serve our fans in an even more personalized way with Bundesliga content. So those conversations we have with leagues and with clubs, it just starts. From my perspective.
So one of the things about any sporting ecosystem is just the multitude of stakeholders involved, right? And what I found interesting is hosting panels around AI in any segment, in any industry, is AI in itself is a strategic tool to enhance the output of your company, right? But in order for that to be effective, it has to be discussed at that C-suite, and it has to filter down. And that takes time, that takes relearning and upskilling. And I think that in itself is also quite a long process. So Peter, that question to you, how do you drive AI first thinking? How do you educate the C-suite and make it part of a KPI? Do you create an alternative decision? How do you drive that?
I think one of the things that I learned when I was at Meta was like the power of case studies, because Meta would live on case studies. And if you can persuade a CEO to look at this case study about how we've created more revenue from, for example, the Verizon NFL deal, I'd say is the best one out there in terms of it opened up a completely different sponsor segment. And that sort of attracts the attention of people who are far more important in the clubs and can open up different budget lines. You know, you look at the scouting tools that you were talking about, again, suddenly you've got different groups of people in leagues and teams going, actually, this is of value to me. So in the Saudi League currently, we've been going through all these different data projects. And the beauty of it is that it started off with one department and then it just spreads. And then everyone has a say, which doesn't make for easy decision making, but it's clearly changing things for marketing, for player scouting, for player improvement. And it's opening up all these different doors, which makes for a fascinating conversation and gets everyone in the room together.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of getting everyone in the room together, Lewis, from your viewpoint, how are you discussing or tackling AI as IMG, as an entity, right? Is it part of your company objectives? Is it part of a strategic thinking that you're building something for the future? Are there new departments coming on board? Is there innovation? Give us an insight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there is no real precedent for this because it's so much bigger than anything we've seen. The way that I try to describe it, and I've used this analogy internally within IMG as well as with our clients that we advise on AI, is that it's going to be as big as digital again. So if you think about everything that's happening, it's not going to be part of digital, it's going to be as big as digital was again. And what I mean by that is that if you go into the Bundesliga or any sports organization, the digital team are not the only people using digital tools, right? So the sales team are sitting there with iPhones and laptops. Everyone's using tech. And I think AI will be similar to that in that it won't be limited to just the digital team. So, Peter talked about Jerry at PSG. It won't be just Jerry's team at PSG. It'll be the way that everyone here organises their journey to this conference. It'll be the way that you'll be using Microsoft Copilot or similar tools to book your travel. That you're not just to book your travel, but that your Copilot would instinctively know already where you live, what your journey to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is, what time you want to be there, who you want to catch up with. Everything will be organised for you. So it's not just about. It's going to be so much bigger than how does the Bundesliga or 4-3-3 use AI. It will transform every part of our lives.
Yeah. Okay, so I've seen David appear stage left, which means we've probably got about 5 minutes left. So a question for you, Lucas. I mean, we've talked about your own AI, I guess, lab that you have in place, data scientists, etc., that you're working with, machine learning, and that's for a fairly young company, right? So if you were to fast forward ahead 2 years' time, what does AI look like at 433?
I think if I look in in 3 years, I think we are actually able to serve the fan exactly what they need at that moment in their day. So, for example, we know exactly that Lucas wants to get a quiz when he wakes up about Ajax. And then I go to my job, and then I want to open the app again, and I want to see certain clips of the Bundesliga. But for Lewis, it will be totally different because he doesn't want to wake up with a quiz. No, he wants to start with the news, with his coffee, and then at the end of his day, then he wants to play a little quiz. And I think that's not even things for in 3 years, but that will be there in a year. And I think we're gonna learn so much that it's really difficult to predict how it looks like in 3 years, because it's insane how much we're gonna learn in the next year.
Well, you just said it's difficult to predict what it looks like next few years. I'm going to ask that exact question now to Peter. Peter, 2 years' time from now, what is AI's biggest impact on football?
I think it's far more giving fans an experience that they personally want, right? Because we talk about fandom as if everyone wants the same experience. That's clearly not true. And if we can move to a position where you can intuitively give a fan the sort of experience they want, then you're clearly sort of building a better future for the game. So, for example, someone who's grown up with gaming wants a gaming experience. They want to be making decisions. They want to be an active viewer. But you've still, as Dennis was talking about, got an older fan that wants a different experience and recoils from having huge amounts of data on screen. So if we can see that direction of travel going, it's less that there is one view of a game and more that you can choose to get your view of the game, or rather that choice is made for you based on how you've received your previous games.
Lewis, same question for you. The biggest impact AI has had on the sport of football in the next 2 years?
I think it'll be that personalisation stuff that Lucas talked about. It'll run in the background. The one thing I would add, I don't think we've talked much about is players and specific athletes, and the shift that we're already seeing in fans identifying more with a specific player than with a specific club. Because you talk about Ajax, and most of the people in this room will have grown up supporting a team, but I think we're already seeing good data that there is a generation of fans that will be fans of Mo Salah or Harry Kane.
Or Ronaldo would be a good example of that.
Or Ronaldo being a great example. And there's very good data at the audiences that Ronaldo's taken with him at every point in his career. I think AI will accelerate that trend as well. And I think the smart clubs and the smart leagues will know that. So I might not watch a huge amount of Bundesliga, but I certainly would have a Harry Kane montage delivered to me every week, every morning, every week, which I will, and all of that will just run in the background, that it will know that that's what you want.
And certainly from a Saudi League perspective on that, that's exactly what we're doing with the players now. And you have the huge advantage of we're buying players on central contracts, so that publishing obligations can get built into that, because we know that it's the players that will change your whole brand in a market. If we can buy 5 Indonesian players, get them to publish a ridiculous amount of content using their own channels, that's going to transform our position in Indonesia better than any TV deal will ever do. So, I think because we have less history and less club rivalry behind that, we can make those decisions easier.
Yeah. Dennis, we'll leave the final word to you. How do you see AI impacting your segment, broadcasting the Bundesliga moving forward?
And maybe taking the perspective what we can deliver for a state-of-the-art media product towards our media partners, it's also coming from archive to SmartChive. That all like the editors, that they have a Siri or you name it, and they just say what they want, and they automatically have a 360 experience. Even the commentator knows, okay, this has been done in 55 years ago. They get the clips pushed, they can use it for environment. So we have more than 200,000 hours of archive already sitting there, that this can be leveraged way easier, just also as a fingertip to leverage or to enhance the audience or the viewing experience. And for me, it's also a huge potential in translation services. So for us as Germans, not always everybody is capable of giving an interview, especially after a match in English, or in different languages. You can just have like the voice of a Sané speaking in Spanish, Italian, whatever, you name it. Then it's more whether these are boundaries or we need to come from a more philosophical direction, whether we want this, but this is something that increases the potential for broadcasts a lot.
Very good. So in summation, what we're saying right now is we're still midway through the journey of defining and implementing AI. We've looked at segmentation, we've looked at the need to provide true value and to ultimately combine the ecosystem from which it all exists in. And I think the biggest thing, for us as panelists, for the audience members here as well, is what is your role within that as well? Sometimes it can be quite simple, the answer. So thank you so much to our esteemed panelists. 2 final takeaways. Number 1, if anyone here has actually gone into ChatGPT or Google Gemini and asked them who will win the Champions League final tomorrow, please do so. Tweet us or, of course, put it out on X. And number 2, who knows, in the future, there may be a hologram version of David that's joining us here on stage. Thank you so much.
Almost certainly, and I welcome it. Thank you. Give it up for the panel, guys.